The following podcast is recorded and produced by Emerge, a media creators co-op, in affiliation with the network at bicbb-radio.com.
Hello there, and welcome back to the 716th Attack Legion.
Hello there, and welcome to another episode of 716th Attack Legion podcast. I almost said
Not
React.
what it's called anymore.
We are not sponsored by
you're
Mighty
right.
Taco.
Dead named us.
You dead named us.
I did.
How could you?
It's been a while. It's been a while since we've done a podcast. We have changed our name. We are now 716th Legion. We are no longer the Attack Legion, so rebranding.
Radical change.
Radical change. It's drastic.
We are
Complete rebrand.
not sponsored by Disney or Mighty Taco.
I am. I get paid directly to my bank account.
I am a straight
by
shill,
Walt
so-
Disney's.
So
like,
Jordan,
brain.
what are we talking about today, babe?
So today we are talking about Acolyte. Yeah, giggity.
Everyone loves Acolyte equally.
The
So-
viewership went up at the
No,
back
it did.
half.
Yeah, it did.
So real quick, before we
we are very much in support of season 2.
go down our path with Acolyte, I just want to take a second to thank everybody who's now followed us on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and Discord.
And anybody on TikTok that wants to hop over to YouTube, those 13,000 could really help.
Yeah, for sure.
But we've been doing lots of lives.
Yeah.
And you guys have been joining us. And it's great. And you rock. And I love you. And also everybody loves talking to me.
Yes, Julian is a very popular person on our TikTok lives. A lot of people mess with Julian on there in all the good ways. But I just want to take a second to thank our subscribers. We couldn't keep doing this if it wasn't for you guys. So thank you. And we appreciate the feedback so we can keep providing you the best product that we can.
Acolyte was good to us.
Acolyte was very
Acolyte
good.
was very
great
good to us.
So
So
as
Thanks, Disney. It's like you paid us.
Yeah,
all
we got
of
some
our
big
subscribers
checks
are
from
actually
Walt
just
Disney.
Disney.
George
Bob
Lucas
Iger
is
himself.
a subscriber.
No, let's not. No.
Kathleen Kennedy walked in the office yesterday. You know,
I love that
So-
we can meme about this. This better be a TikTok. I'll kill you.
Kathleen Kennedy completely ignored a lot of our previous history of what we've said about her that we now regret deeply.
Remember all
to pay
the
us
hate
money.
that we got?
We got
when we
three
were dumb
videos.
as hell, like 2 years ago.
3 videos. I believe it's 3. 3 pushing 4 with over 1 million views on TikTok. We guaranteed have 2 videos. And another one that's pushing. So
I definitely knew all this.
Christian's
Christian's
very
a very
avid
educated
TikTok.
man.
Yeah, so I'm keep definitely up to date on what's happening
And
on the TikTok.
So in other news, we have 2 videos pushing 500K.
I know. That's wild.
And we have another one that, though it's being shadow banned, is the way I call it. It's not really shadow banned. It's more censoring because it's a violent
It's
content.
just censored because Jord gets his neck snapped.
Oh, it's on TikTok.
So we
Yeah,
have
that guy.
2 videos on TikTok that have over 550,000 views, that are still pushing and counting, which is awesome.
Why did the Soul one get?
Just violence. Somebody reported it. It is what it is.
Goddamn
But
Disney
But not the
violence.
Jackie video.
Yeah.
well,
That's fine. That
because
was,
everybody loves Jackie.
it was just light stabbing.
I love how one of our most popular TikToks, which is almost at 1 million views, is the Monty Python one.
Such a great
I
TikTok.
just love that so
Such a great-
much.
I will touch you a second time.
Anyway, go check out the TikTok.
Yeah, go check out TikTok. But if you're on TikTok, go follow us on YouTube. And I also want to thank bicbp-radio.com for hosting us, as well as Emerge Studios, Amaranto Media. I want to get those out there first.
That sentence has not come out in a long time. Hi, Rich. How you doing over there?
I don't think you've been on camera yet.
Not this
Not
season.
Not on this season, no.
I haven't
This
been
season.
on. I've been just watching the reacts over in a blue chair over there, and I think I need to take a moment because all you bitches out there that made comments about the audio. That's my fault, and the reason why is because I want to watch the show. I'm not going to sit over here with a monitor over there. I can't watch, so no. So you people that had to suffer for a couple seconds of audio, I don't really have that much sympathy for you. I really don't, because I want to watch the show.
Because Rich got to watch The Acolyte with us.
I'm watching The Acolyte. I had the headphones on, and sometimes I get up, and sometimes by the time I got over to fix the level, because someone did this or did this, I had a,
Hey, we're still growing.
So
It'll
I
get
do
better,
apologize, but I'm a human, and you guys don't pay me enough to make me miss Acolyte.
Fair enough. But you could pay him by subscribing.
Or working at Disney because they pay us.
Yes. Yes.
I can vouch that Disney doesn't pay you, because if you are, you're hiding it.
They send
What?
They send the money by
They
Raven.
don't?
Since when?
Our commenters seem to think that they do.
They made you
man.
deaf.
They're paying us in churros.
They send the money by sea.
Oh, that's right.
I don't know if you've ever
got
had
a
They
this.
pay by
shipment every
flying
month.
stork
Yes,
that drops it off like a
they
child.
pay by seagull.
I
We
would
all
work
have a
for
lot of
churros.
them
I would
Florida.
work
They
for
just send
churros for the churros.
I don't know if you've had
Yes.
Disney
I would
churros,
work for
but that is worth a substantial amount of payment there.
So, let's talk about what we're supposed to talk about.
Sorry. It's so easily squirrel mentality.
Yeah.
So, real quick, Acolyte. Give me a number grade on how you would rate Acolyte. We're not going to go into the why just yet because I feel like that'll come naturally. But
Strictly
number grade.
a
We're gonna
number?
Start with Jack.
Start with our favorite clientele here.
I don't want to start with mine. All right, fine.
By the way, I am joined by Christian, Jack, and Julian, and Rich as
In case
always.
you didn't know from the intro or like the other hundreds of videos that we post.
Yeah, I'm making you go first. You always go last.
Like a 7.4.
7.4. Put it up on the screen, Jack.
Yeah, that's my enjoyment. That's my enjoyment.
Like the pizza reviews that Dave Portnoy does. Put it on the screen. Jack, you're up.
9. 9 out of 10.
9. 9.2, just to put a topper on it.
8.6.
Well, that's good. I was
think
waiting for him to be like, 3 out of 4.
Rich,
the cynic I remain.
I'm probably near Jordan. I'm probably like an 8.5 to 8.8.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's pretty high. That is like generally a ranking that I think all of us have agreed on for once.
you're-
It's like above
I
a 5.
like it. No, don't get me wrong. A 7.4 still puts it in like a higher category for
Yeah.
me. For like
A
the
seven-
shows at least.
A 7.4 from Christian though is like on a curve. It's like the mean college professor.
Yeah.
that nobody gets 100. Like that's
yeah,
Yeah,
you
I'm a
got a
bit more-
75. You passed.
Yeah,
Accept it.
yeah. That's
I don't know. I guess it was an enjoyment level or what we're grading it.
just grading the show. Period.
Oh, then 7.4 ish.
All right.
Okay, so based off of the number ratings, we're going to start with the highest rating. Julian, what is your biggest takeaway from the show?
What do you mean biggest takeaway?
Like pros and cons. What did not give it a perfect 10 for you? Let's start with that.
Nothing's a perfect 10.
There, after talking with a couple people and rewatching, because I rewatched the entire season with Rick, I wish that they had spread out the flashbacks a little bit more and sprinkled it in. I said this on the live the other day, but I wish they had almost done it in the way they did it with Luke in Last Jedi, how they sprinkled in the flashbacks almost as memories, but being told from different perspectives until we finally got the real one. I think that would have been helpful. Not saying that what we got was bad. I mean, I love the flashback episodes, but I can agree with some people in the comments or some people we've talked to about saying that like episode 7 was a lot of unnecessary stuff. Are you mimicking my hand?
Hey,
No,
man,
he was just doing the single ladies dance.
I have a different song stuck in my head.
So, yeah, I would say that, like, they could have spread that out a little bit more and kind of made it a little bit more mysterious. But I mean, I really still like that's not even really a con for me. That's just a if I had to change something, you know. I think that I do agree with a person we've been talking to on TikTok Live. His name's Rick's Reacts. I do agree with him in the sense that we should have gotten a little bit more flashback-wise in terms of building the relationship between Osha and Soul.
I can agree with that.
I think that their relationship is really good and it is portrayed really well, but we don't, aside from him saving her life in the original flashback, we don't really see why their bond is so important. So I think that like that could have amplified it again just a little bit. That could have just like made me care about them just the slightest bit more than I already did. You know what I mean? It's not a 100% necessary needs to happen thing, because I have a feeling we're going to get some more of that next season in terms of like regret and all sorts of stuff like that. But yeah, so in terms of things that I think makes the show a 9 is that it's really original. I love the characters. It has made yellow my favorite lightsaber color. I think the fighting is phenomenal. It's the best fighting of anything we've ever gotten from Disney. Like, it really is. I think the choreography in this is the best lightsaber choreography we've gotten since episode 3. It's phenomenal. I think that I think the acting is stunning. Lee Jung-jae is literally so fucking talented, and if I didn't know that he learned English for this role, I wouldn't be able to tell that he didn't know English. Like, that's insane to me. He was so good. And the characters are just written really well. Their motivations of why they make the decisions to do things, all that sort of. It's just good storytelling, and it's completely not related to Luke or Anakin Skywalker. It's something completely different that we've just in a new era that we've never seen before. I think the show's designed really well. I think it's shot well. It's directed well. The costumes are great. The artistic direction they took with designing like all the sets and the lights. It's just, I think that it is put together really well and is really well produced on top of having a really good story. That's why I put it at a 9.
I also
Jack?
love that they didn't shoot it on the volume.
That's true.
that I
too.
can
Everything
give it
was
to-
practical,
I'm
except
sure
for the space stuff.
I'm sure that there had to have been like some stuff that they did on the volume, but most of it was
I
sets,
think
which
everything
is
but
awesome.
the space stuff was on set.
I think a lot of it was.
Yeah, a lot of it
was
was
on
on
location.
location.
A lot of
stuff.
it was set work. I think more set work than on location, actually. But like Andor had a lot of on location stuff, and then
Yeah.
also a decent amount of set work as well. But honestly, yeah. But there's no surprise that the shows that kind of have looked better, among the Star Wars shows, Andor and Acolyte, which I think are two of the better looking ones, honestly, have used the Acolyte much less. Have used what's it called, the volume
less.
much
Yeah.
less than like say the Mandover type stuff, which have relied on it heavily.
I mean, Mandalorian season 1, like that was the
Well, I
big
mean, like
thing about
Mandalorian is
Mandal-
adjacent stuff, like Obi-Wan and
Ahsoka.
like Ahsoka, Book of Boba Fett. Like,
Yeah, I mean, but
they
that
all
was
use
I
them
think
with
for those shows, I mean, that was like the thing. Like when Mandalorian season 1 came out, they used the fact that they were using the volume to promote the show.
and the volume can be.
It
like,
can be really good. I mean, Mandalorian season 1 is
There's
really
just
well
obvious
done.
though that there are certain cinematographers and certain directors that are maybe new with it,
Mm-hmm.
whose style of directing does not always take into account. Like for instance, like Filoni, like in some of the episodes he directed, like in like Ahsoka, like you could just tell like he was having some issues. Like there's the one Thrawn shot that comes to mind. Like in I think it's like the Ahsoka finale or episode 7, where
Oh,
it's like,
when
where like
he's-
the angle's all wrong, like the way, like in terms of like the what's behind him when he's like all these stormtroopers behind him, just little stuff like
Yeah,
that.
it just didn't mesh.
Obi-Wan is, I think, probably the worst offender, where the volume works when you seamlessly incorporate it into a physical set with like layers most
Right.
of the time. And a lot of the time, like say in Obi-Wan, it would just be like the volume would be it.
Well,
like,
right. Also,
without
like
much in
like,
front of it.
to compare that, like that shot in Ahsoka, to compare it with the second episode of Mandalorian when he's riding the, with Nick Nolte's character.
Yeah, exactly.
Like what is that called? What's the little
Purgle? No, not a Purgle.
No. What's the little
The fish-looking thing. I
Yeah,
know what you're talking
yeah.
about.
But he's
Yeah.
riding one of those with
The blurg.
The blur.
Blurred.
Yeah,
Encyclopedia
come
Brain
clutch,
strikes again.
Christian.
Yeah, that's my brain dead.
yeah. But
brain
so
dead.
him riding one of those, like that is all on the volume, and
Yeah.
that's really well done. You
But
know?
no, even that's what I'm saying. There's such a spectrum of like. That's why like it stands out when it's done poorly. Because there are other times where it's been done exceptionally well. Like there are entire rooms in the first season of Mandalorian. Like the room that he like first meets like what's like the German dude.
Oh, Werner Herzog.
Yeah, Werner Herzog's
Fantastic
character.
actor,
That
by the way.
entire room is not there. That's just entirely volume.
Yeah.
Like and nobody you can't tell.
The
at
desk
all.
is
So that's why I'm
real.
saying like there's such
Yeah.
degree of like quality of what we've seen with the technology. being
I can
used.
agree with you.
Anyway, back to the actual
I want
Yeah,
to watch
so-
Mando season 1 again.
So,
Yeah.
Jordan. I think you're
based
right,
off of what we got with Acolyte, just real quick, I'd like to see Mando season 3 redone to be Acolyte level, but that's neither here nor there. Jack, why do you rate it a 9?
I don't know if Julian was reading my iPad, but he pretty much covered all of the points that I had already put down. I think that this is the most original Star Wars thing that we've gotten since like
The originals?
since the originals. Like everything in Star Wars has tied back to Luke, Anakin, Obi-Wan, like all of the original main characters. This is the first time that we've gotten something completely out of the ballpark.
It stands on its own.
It stands on its own. I love that it's given us a ton of different things from Legends that like
Oh, yeah,
we've
100%.
completely forgotten about.
Yeah, like Cortosis.
Cortosis was a
Fucking
great
awesome.
addition.
Light Whip,
Light Whip.
all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
I just think we desperately needed some kind of revamp for Star Wars, and I think that this did just that.
It's refreshing.
Yes.
To see like this show gives us all of everybody's favorite things about Star Wars. Jedi, lightsaber fights, Sith, and I'm going to get hate for this, but good storytelling.
It is good storytelling.
Like it really does. Everybody's favorite thing about Star Wars is lightsabers.
I
Like,
wanted to
it
make
just
a joke.
is.
I
And,
wanted to make
like,
a joke.
What do you
And then I
give
feel
him?
like-
He gave it an 8. Point saying he can't think it's bad. He gave it an 8. Point
Like, let's
something.
be-
when we
like-
said good storytelling, he went,
No, because I wanted to make a joke, and then I'm like, I'll probably get canceled.
Yeah,
so I should not
don't.
make a joke.
But anyway,
canceled.
so like, this show does like. I talked about this a little bit last night, but this show is very fan servicey without being fan servicey, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, I
it
would
gives
say so.
fans all of the things that they like about
It's less
Star
overt
Wars.
than like say Ahsoka.
right. Well, it like Ahsoka's fan servicey in like they were like, oh, here's Anakin, which is great and I love it.
No, I
But-
mean even like stylistically how they deliver certain
Right.
things. It's a bit more.
But
on the
this
nose
like in
than
terms
Ahsoka.
of like fan service is what I mean is like Star Wars fans love lightsaber fights and they love the Jedi. And what did they do but choreograph literally the best lightsaber fight we've had since Revenge of the Sith? And
I would argue that some of that episode 5 of Acolyte actually had better lightsaber fighting in it than the Obi-Wan Annie fight.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I would 100% agree.
I would
I can
argue
agree
it.
with that.
I didn't say
I would agree
There's
with
less of like there are moments in that fight where it's like okay, what are we doing here?
Well,
Like-
that
like-
was the so the wait,
again, it's
can I
campy.
want to
It's
make a
like
point on
it's of
this?
its time. And
I want to make a point on this because I was arguing with a couple people on TikTok Live the other day about this. That if you watch the fighting in the prequels, it's good. It's cool. It's flashy. It's pretty. Their moves are great. It's very fast.
yeah.
But it's designed to be fast. But there are literally frames.
Yeah, it doesn't make the most sense.
It doesn't. They're not fighting each other. Like
But
if
it
you
makes
watch
up for it in aesthetic. That's
if
why
you-
like
yeah,
the sequel trilogy's
it's-
fighting doesn't
it's-
get away with it because it doesn't look as like
It's not as
stylistic.
visually
Yeah.
pleasing.
And like in
well, and it's pure like the
Yeah.
fighting in the prequels is purely about how it looks
And the energy-
versus
the energy of
the
it.
energy of it. Because you watch the Anakin Obi-Wan fight, there are moments where Obi-Wan will like block and then he just holds his lightsaber in place until Anakin comes back around and hits it the other way. And it's one of those things where it's like, and I've noticed that my entire life. Like ever since
yeah.
I was a kid, I was like, why is he not doing anything? He's just holding his lightsaber in place for him to come back around and hit it again.
Well, I think that's his fighting style.
Nope, but it's not. Every single character in the prequels that gets into a lightsaber fight does that. Every single one. I guarantee you watch every fight in the
I will
prequels.
have
They
to
all do it.
rewatch.
They all do it. And it's not and it's strictly is because they're doing that for speed.
Yeah.
and not actual fighting. Like that is my one problem with the choreography from the prequels, is that they're not actually trying to kill each other. They're not. Like Anakin versus Obi-Wan, it's a beautiful fight. It's choreographed really well. It does not at all, at any moment in that fight, look like they're trying to kill each other.
They don't want to.
Well, I don't think.
Well, yeah, okay, fine. Take the Darth. Okay, fine. Take the Darth Maul and take the Darth Maul Qui-Gon Obi-Wan fight. There are also moments in that where they're just aiming for the saber. They're not aiming to like hurt.
I think
somebody.
the difference is like there are moments in like those fights compared to and again, I'm not really talking about this one because I think the one thing that's kind of universal about Acolyte, unless you're kind of really reaching for straws and then everyone just kind of points at you and laughs, is that like the choreography was like very much top tier. And,
Yeah,
and was kind of like the speed of like the prequel era fights, which were kind of people have been like kind of crying out for, but also a little bit more distinct in like trying to avoid some of these other weird things that we've been
Right,
talking
and
about.
I think that
one of my biggest critiques from the prequel fighting is, or just like critiques with lightsaber fighting in general.
We're so cautious to be like, oh man, I don't know if I like this fight because it's the prequels, and people in the comments will be like, you're stupid.
Yeah.
One of my biggest critiques in lightsaber fights in general, whether it be the prequels or fan films or anything that have to do with lightsabers, is if someone has two lightsabers in their hand, they will swing once, the person will block it, and then they'll wind up again and swing and pull this one back. That is not how you should be fighting with two lightsabers.
I will say this: Jack knows a thing or two about lightsaber choreography.
So does Julian.
So do I.
Well, I know Julian does as well. But we were talking about this on TikTok Live, how you have some of the best experiences with it.
I wouldn't say the best. I've choreographed
out of the
fights.
four of us.
There are like three people in this show that like are like basically go right into like the S tiers of like wielding like a saber and
like
Soul, Chimera,
no,
and
like Soul, Chimera
Chimera
and
fighting
Jackie
with-
all have like top tier, like the way they move around, the way that like how natural they feel when they're using it. And again, Jackie is like the most natural like user of two sabers we've ever seen.
There was the one.
I mean, actually, to be fair, what's his name when he used the Shoto like later on ends up
Chimeras
actually
fight with
being
Soul
up there
in
too.
the last episode
So,
is like such
no,
a
that's
good
elite.
fight.
Yeah, it's elite.
Well, I think that like the one. Actually, it's the moment. It's literally the moment right before she dies, where Chimera, like Soul's there, or I'm sorry, Jackie's there, and she has her lightsaber, and he goes to like swipe down at her, and you could literally see she like just barely weaves out of the way, and then comes back and hits his lightsaber down so that he can't come back up. Like that is such genius. Like that's something you would never see in any other Star Wars fight. Is like a reaction like that, like she'll whoop, and then literally coming back to like protect herself. Like you don't see stuff like that a lot. Like this is one of the best fights in all of
so-
One thing that can I just say something real quick?
Yeah.
One thing that I will say about the prequel fights in defense of like them not hitting each other or like trying to kill each other is like technically they don't want to kill the other person. They want to disarm the other person. So,
right,
like,
but
if they're
there's
swinging
no
for the lightsaber.
But
then,
there's no. I'm not saying that somebody is okay. Let me rephrase.
Okay.
It's not when they're swinging at the lightsaber. That's fine. My problem is when I go to strike you, and you block it, and then you move your lightsaber away, and I just keep my hands in this position and wait for you to come back.
No,
and
I
hit it.
agree
But
with
there's
that.
also
That's my
like,
problem.
There's also, you have to keep in mind, there's very much in-universe bullshit that like explains a lot
Yeah.
of that away, because there's some like degree of that the lightsabers like kind of pull to each other. There's some degree that the Jedi are subconsciously like know where the next person is going to swing a lot of the time. So like they're kind of aware of it. So that's why again, there's bullshit.
I mean, yeah, I'm
that-
just
that
saying,
have
like,
been put out across.
And again,
the
like,
different
again,
things,
this is
so.
not. I know I'm gonna get hate in the comments now. They're gonna be like, Julian doesn't like the prequels. It has nothing to do with that. I love the prequel fights. They are some of the best fights in Star Wars. They're better than the originals and they're better than the sequels. But I'm just saying that there are moments in those fights that are problematic. This fight, I don't think there is a single lightsaber fight in this show at any moment that I have anything negative to say about. It is so well done. That is all I have to say.
I want to chime in
Rest
about the
my
lightsaber
case.
fighting because I feel like they purposely sat down and said, in development of the show, we are going to have great lightsaber fights. That's the most important thing. We have to give the audience what they want. We haven't seen any good ones in a while. So let's really focus on that. So who are we bringing in to do this? So the stunt coordinators that came in and really decided, I think, to purposely design a different lightsaber style fight that's inspired, that's got a martial arts feel to it. It's got definitely heavily inspired by Japanese film fighting that I've watched. I mean, it just is.
Real quick, let me chime in very quickly because I can speak to that. Chimere's actor, they said, who's what's Chimere's actor's name?
Manny Jacinto.
Manny Jacinto. He's Filipino, and like actually the very specific reason that he has a very small shoulder blade is because when they were developing his fight style together, in Filipino like culture, like in they have like their martial arts, they like it's often to have like two blades and like a short blade. So like that's literally like of his like culture like infused into the character. So they very much did stuff like that. So they like literally built like their fight styles from the ground up to like very much suit the actor as well.
I did read a thing a while back, and it said that one of the things what they said that when they were choreographing it, one of the things that they actually said is we don't want to see any or very, very little traditional moves that we've seen in other things. Like we don't want to see, like, obviously there's certain things that have to happen, but in general they really wanted to feel like it was from a different period. Again, like if you saw people fighting now versus 100 years ago, it would look different.
Yeah.
Right? So they wanted to express that, and they really wanted to represent a completely different style. Again, and you guys have talked about it, and I don't claim to know anything about the hilts and everything, but clearly the hilt styles are very different on this, especially when you compare it to some of the stuff we've seen in Ahsoka.
And some of the concept art was insane.
It's definitely like, and that's,
it looked really good.
That's what, if you're a hater of this show, like, then you just don't like Star Wars, and you don't like the fact that they built lore, that they tried to create like a completely interesting kind of lore and stuff. It's not a violation of Luke Skywalker.
Actually, here's my little thing I'll get in. Jordan's been waiting to speak, so we'll get back on to the topics at hand. And I don't even think we need to talk about this very much. I will actually argue with anyone. Don't think this show violated any substantial or meaningful lore. I really don't think
I agree.
I will literally argue band for band with you. I think there's small little things that don't matter that they violate, like Kathy Moody's fucking age. like there's little stuff like that. But
his age.
And I don't know, Plagueis says in the fucking novel that he's well over 100 years old, so no, it's not even that actually.
Are you going off of the one book that says he's like 15?
I'm just more going off the troglodytes in the comments.
Oh,
Okay,
they're
but
wrong. Though,
so-
and again, I think the people that do think, I think this show actually did a very good job of separating who thinks they know a lot about Star Wars versus people who like kind of pretend and like ignore certain things to make themselves feel better about like the lore.
and
but that, again, I don't even want to get too far into this.
Yeah,
Now
I didn't mean to
Jordan
bring
get
that up.
get-
I didn't
no,
want
no,
to-
no.
you're
I just
good.
wanted to mention it because I think we should get it in, but we don't need to make a whole discussion.
well,
of it. But, like,
I want to hear what you have to say, because the second he said that, you went. And I want to know what that face is. Like, what about this show breaks that lore?
It's not necessarily that it breaks
so bad.
lore, it's fear.
What?
Fear for what?
Okay, so I talked about this in our reacts when Plagueis came in. And if you don't watch our reacts, I highly encourage you to go watch our reacts, because we really go into depth. A lot more than we are now.
Hour-long discussion afterwards.
Every time. It's more that I just don't want them to mess with Anakin's
They're
creation.
not
doing
they're
that,
not
though.
going
Yeah,
to.
but
I
the
don't
thing
think
That's my fear. That's
Yeah,
my
but
fear.
even Plagueis doesn't like, because again, Plagueis didn't like care about creating life. Plagueis cared about immortality. So
I
so he
understand.
sees that as a vehicle, like, oh, I can like reverse engineer that, and again, like, what did you think he just made it up in his mind, like, to do it?
This
Like,
show-
it's fine that like it doesn't matter that like he took it from a like Palpatine took inspiration from like Talzin, like, and shit, you know what I mean, like in the most recent, and
mean,
nobody cares about that.
The thing I want to say about that is, like, this show is 100 years before, like, so 91 years before Anakin Skywalker is born. So it's like, I really don't think that this show is going to last long enough for them to even like, I don't even think Anakin Skywalker's like the idea of him will ever be brought up in this show.
Like, I don't think the May Ocean
it's
thing is
so
that related
far-
to Anakin, and
I
don't
wasn't
think
necessarily talking about that. It was
Yeah.
more the fact that the manipulating the midichlorians
Yeah, but we already know how he was
But
created,
even when it
so
says
they
to
can't
create
change
life,
it.
it's more to like create life to like prolong his, because that's like Plagueis' whole thing, was just unnaturally.
I guess
prolonging
how would
his life.
Jordan, how would they mess with Anakin's creation? I
Smee
don't understand
says
that.
in Phantom Menace there was no father.
It was Palpatine. He
No,
got it
that's
on
not
with
actually-
me. He was like,
No, even like the one. No,
Palpatine doesn't date, but he
I
definitely
mean, even
does.
the one panel that, because like the one panel obviously fueled a lot of speculation from the Vader comics, because there's the one panel where you see like a shadowy figure of which is like.
which is supposed to be
But no,
when
but
he's
the
going
author is
into
actually the author is like, and the artist have actually come out and said that panel is not like actual canon.
Yeah,
like,
it's
this
his
is true.
fear.
This is like this is a manifestation of like what Vader thinks. Like that's how like evil he thinks Palpatine is in his mind. At
So
that
let
point.
me
So-
hear from Jordan.
Yeah, let Jordan
why
go
he
for a bit.
like if how I want to know. They've already explained how Anakin was created. How can like in episode 1 they explain where he came from. So how could they mess with that?
Well, they don't
that
really
doesn't make any sense.
They
Well, they don't
just-
explain it exactly to a T, but like
Yeah, not word
does
for
it
word,
need
but-
explaining? Like we already know what happens.
But if you, this is my feelings, is that if you go in and you say, okay, we're going to make Plagueis and Palpatine, because I feel like this is going to segue into Plagueis and Palpatine down
I think
road.
the show will end with Plagueis getting Palpatine as a
I don't even
as
think
an apprentice.
Palpatine's ever going to show his head in the show. If I'm going to
probably not.
Probably not. Also, Palpatine's definitely not born yet.
No.
No, he's
So-
not even-
No,
yeah,
he's
the show has
definitely
to
not
go a
born.
while
I'm just
more.
kind of more just like, if the show got 5-6 seasons,
That's not going to happen. This show will end after 2-3 seasons, and that's it.
I definitely want 5 or 6 seasons.
I could go
I
for
do
5
want
or
more
6,
in this
but
era now.
but the
Yeah.
story, like that's my thing.
Then you have to
This-
start weaving it
the
into
story
That's-
is so confined to just May and Osha. Like, okay, yeah, the Jedi are there and we know about them, but the story is so confined to just those two characters that what are they gonna do? Carry this story like until they're in like their 60s?
No, I
know,
think
like,
it's more.
like,
I
that's
think
just-
it's more the when I say 5-6 seasons. I think we'll get away from the fact that May and Osha are the main characters, and we'll go into
That would
a
be
more,
stupid. That
Just
ruins
let me
the
talk.
show.
Let me talk. He's a very nice guy. I know you're a very nice guy,
Okay.
but what I'm saying is it would segue into like a Plagueis show. Yeah. And I don't know. It's a
They
fear.
can't do that because the show's called The Acolyte.
Yeah, we're just gonna
so
get
it's
like-
not called
No,
the
if
Plague
anything, I
Show.
think we're
So
all-
I
I
don't.
think-
I think.
I'm pretty sure the
if
show
you
is
get a
designed like
second
Andor.
season, I think if you get more than a second season, that would be.
I think this show is
I'd be
designed like
surprised
Andor.
if you get more than 2 seasons.
Where like that, I think that yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think it's designed like Andor, where they have the idea for the second season. If say it gets greenlit, because again, I think like this show builds up to basically like the Savage and Maul versus Palpatine fight. Like I think ultimately like, because I do think Chimera is actually just like is a rule of 2 Sith.
He's a puppet.
And
Yes.
is a rule of 2 Sith. Osha is the equivalent of a Maul, which again Plagueis knew was fully aware of Maul the entire
Yeah,
time.
he looked at him as a tool.
And
not
just as
necessarily
just as
a Sith.
Palpatine was fully aware of Ventress until he began to fear Ventress and like made Dooku do away with her. So in that's what Osha is. Osha is like a Ventress Maul equivalent.
Yeah.
Like Chimera is the lower like one, and then Pelagius is just an earlier Padawan. But obviously we know that Chimera does not become like the Lord at any point, like and take Plagueis.
Yeah,
place.
and-
so I think we're building up to, and he's very young, and he's probably not too far along into like he's not like years and years and years into like Sith training with Plagueis, it seems. So I think
would
we're
be-
kind of building up to a point where we can do like that fight from
That would
Clone
be a
Wars,
great
but
way
in
to
live
end the
action
show.
with Plagueis versus these two. Like I think that's kind of what it is building to.
So
If we're blessed with the second season, which we want.
Very much so.
like I said, it's more fear based, but I don't want to linger on that.
Yeah, let's get
Really
to- let's get to
I
your other
don't.
question.
I don't
Anger
think
leads
they're
to
gonna.
hate.
I don't think they will
Hate
ever
leads to
go anywhere
suffering.
near Anakin in this show.
No, I don't think so at all.
They're
either.
so far off. It just wouldn't. It wouldn't make sense.
They're just going into like the Plagueis like
Introducing
power.
him as a
like
character,
the
making him
powers
canon.
mentioned in the tragedy of Darth Plagueis. That's
Right,
all.
right,
they're,
right,
that's
right.
all
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
alluding to with Plagueis at the moment.
Yeah.
So, wait, can we get that on loop? We are recording this.
It was a species in Return of the Jedi in the Max Rebo band. That's what her species
In the
was.
Max Rebo band.
Good, yeah.
He's obviously a much better character from that race.
Oh yeah.
Anybody from the Max Rebo band. I don't know.
But yeah, good pull.
saw them in
Nice
pull.
pull. And again, that's why like if you like
Yeah,
again,
I
if
saw
you-
them in Nashville. That's a really good.
Again, if
band.
you don't like some of the decisions that like Leslie Headland made, fair enough. But like, don't pretend like she's not like she clearly like as a fan of certain Star, maybe not everything, but like she certainly is like a Legends fan.
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
Very clearly.
Yeah.
Like you can't listen to her like talk in interviews and not get that takeaway. You just don't want to accept her for
I
like,
wouldn't.
that's-
I wouldn't put her on like a elite tier Star Wars knowledge. But
I mean, but, like,
she has crazy Star Wars knowledge.
yeah, and also it's not a prerequisite. If like
No.
and people like criticized her one because she said I brought in some writers that like weren't related. I'm like, oh, you mean like Tony Gilroy? Like I literally like Tony Gilroy. Like I would actually say like probably has like the best in my opinion, like as like literally the best piece of Star Wars content like created, Andor, and like that dude at best tolerates Star Wars. Like you know what I mean? Like he doesn't know a jack shit about any of the lore, but yet he like just looked at like some of the like more deeper themes of it and was able to like synthesize that into like what Andor is. Okay. And like I'm not saying he was like people who are like over the top fans are held back by that, but like it's certainly like Star Wars can be accessible, and it like being like a super fan and knowing like everything about the lore does not need to be a prerequisite to like making these shows.
Well,
So
the one thing that they brought in writers who were not necessarily fans of Star Wars, to write the show, and I think I actually made the show that much better
I
because
agree.
you have
I
an
agree.
objective mind going in. Hey, this makes sense. Hey, this doesn't make sense. Hey, this is
a
not
lot of
going
other
to be
stylistic
fan
inputs
service.
coming in, and like your other people's inspiration. Like there was
That's-
a lot of Crouching Tiger, which I assume was just one of the writers like
I mean,
movies,
the-
and they incorporated in like
the
shit like that.
idea is that you don't have to. This is, I think, some of the things that fans are upset about. Is fans are upset that if you don't know every detail of every Legends book, of every tiny thing that has ever happened in Star Wars ever that's ever been written, that you're not a real fan and you don't understand.
But those
Star
same
Wars.
fans get their lore wrong so much.
Well, I know that, but that's the point I'm trying to make. Is like this show succeeds because it has people who don't know all the details of every tiny in-depth thing in Star Wars ever. That there is that sort of creative openness that they can have that doesn't have to be strictly 100% like by the book. I
Even
guess
though-
you could say.
Actually,
it
this
doesn't have
reminds
to
me.
be
The
that.
only lore break I thought there was in the entire show was like when Osha, again, this is a spoiler thing, like bleeds the crystal. I thought like, why was it like that so easy to bleed? And I'm like, oh, like on rewatch, like oh, she's actually touching the crystal. Like it broke. Like it's she's not just touching the hilt. If you look specifically, you all don't see this, right?
Also-
Like there's actual skin contact with the crystal, so it doesn't break. Like that's why Anakin's doesn't go red because he's not touching the crystal. Like at any
Also,
point.
I will point out for everyone being like, how did Osha bleed it so quickly? She did not bleed as fast as Dagan Gera.
No,
That's a good point.
Second point to that. Everybody, we had this conversation last night on TikTok Live about Anakin bleeding a crystal.
That's
Yeah.
what the point I was just about to make. If you
Anakin
want
was
to
in
make it.
turmoil why it took him so long.
So there's
Oh,
a few
100%.
different things. Anakin becomes a fallen Jedi and is knighted Darth Vader. That does not mean he accepts the personality of Darth Vader.
Yeah, no, like that entire Vader comic is like
So good.
It's fantastic.
It's very nuanced because it shows that Vader does not just be like. Yes, Vader is like is very much a separate personality from Anakin, but like that first while that he is in the suit, he is not like Vader we know in A New Hope. Like the actual Anakin is actually trapped inside there and fucking being tortured, basically inside like the broken body, and there's Vader is also in there and is taking over. Like what is good in Anakin, which still is there even after his fall, is still fighting him throughout that comic run. So like yeah, that's why it takes him so fucking long to breed the crystal, because like the Jedi Anakin is still fighting like the
Well,
Sith.
that's the
Like,
point that I made last night. Is that
his wife died too.
Anakin doesn't. This is like, guys, come on. This is like simple. Again, stupid fans don't understand good writing.
Yeah.
This is like Anakin's crystal doesn't bleed because that was not just a popular thing in Star Wars at that point.
Yeah,
They
I
were
mean,
using
Why they didn't do
synthetic crystals for the Sith at the time.
It doesn't matter, but like
what I'm saying,
I'm
it
telling you,
didn't
George
exist yet.
Lucas did not write Episode 3 and go, Anakin's lightsaber's not red because he didn't bleed his crystal. Like that's not
Well,
the
no,
thing.
the bleeding was
But-
just in 2017. Obviously, everyone
Exactly.
knows the
But
action.
what I am
didn't
saying,
exist.
is, if you want to force it into lore, it's like look at the very, very, very basic character arc of Darth Vader. He is always to the core Anakin. He is. No matter how evil he is, no matter what bad shit he does, at the end of the day, on the inside, ultimately, super deep down, he's Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah, when you went
so it doesn't matter how bad he is or what he does. When he's killing all those younglings, it's all in his mind justified as a good thing to protect the person he cares about. So for everybody who's like, oh, he couldn't bleed the crystal, he's not, it's like, just shut up, guy. Just shut up.
Did you know?
Anyway, Jordan.
In the original Revenge of the Sith script, he did have a red lightsaber, but they changed it.
Interesting.
Yeah, because Anakin is still good, even past that movie. At the end of Revenge of the Sith, Anakin is not a bad guy. He's just not.
So that's
I don't know if I
neither
agree
here
with
nor
that,
there with the point. The point is they were using synthetic crystals in
Yeah, that's the old canon.
Yeah, at the time,
red sabers.
He
When-
can't, okay, so here's the thing. His lightsaber
We don't
at
need
the
to be
end of
on this
episode 3 is got to be blue because Luke ends up with it.
Yeah.
He couldn't. Luke's gonna touch it and it's gonna turn back to blue. That's just stupid. Like,
Oh my god, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, obviously.
Anakin, Obi-Wan picks it up and walks away with it. It couldn't be red.
And regardless, we're getting into.
Oh
And
my God.
and again, we don't need to be talking about this.
I mean,
But either way, it's less. It's less.
watch the movies.
But everyone, shut up. Literally, like we don't even need to be talking about this though. Like again, we don't need to get super deep into every fucking topic. All I was saying was that argument, we didn't even need to get into that deeper step because they actually haven't changed anything. Because guess what? You have to be touching a kyber crystal. They haven't broken that rule since 2017 when it was fucking introduced. So that's all I was trying to say. We didn't need to get into the merits of it or anything.
But
We have actual
One of my
topics and
favorite
other
Robot
topics.
Chicken sketches is when they're like at the end of Anakin versus Obi-Wan, and Anakin's like burning on Mustafar, and Obi-Wan's like, "I'll just take this," and he's like, "Are you robbing me? What is he? I'm burning to death over here, and you're robbing me?" He's like, "I can't hear you from the high ground."
Anyways, Christian, favorite character that you met?
Chimere. By a lot.
So by quick show of hands, whose favorite character was Chimere?
50-50. I like Soul.
Okay. So, and I know Julian's favorite character was Soul. So
he's the best written character. In the show,
and there's a reason. There's a clear reason why these tables are divided.
No, I mean, I'm not, again,
just
the idea is going to be,
Definitely Dark Side.
here we go, in the comments, they're going to be like, oh, Julian doesn't like Chimere. I love Chimere, but I think Soul is written, his character, is extremely relatable, and you understand that he has flaws, and his acting is really good, and
I'd say that everybody in the show has phenomenal acting, but I think that Soul and Chimere just like
I agree.
Take it a good step
The
up.
actor who
word
plays
that
Saul
comes
was the best actor on the show.
I agree.
Yes.
Every line that comes out of Lee Jung-jae's mouth has so much emotion behind it. Especially the best line in the entire show, in my personal opinion, is in the flashback in episode 3 when he hands her the lightsaber and has that little tiny smile on his face and says, "Would you like to become a Jedi, Osha?" It is so good. It almost brought me to tears. It's so good. And then he gives her that little smile. Oh, he's just so good.
I think one of my favorite lines in the
He's
show.
also deeply flawed. Which is
yeah.
He's just really well
He
written.
has to be.
So, that actually kind of segues perfectly into the next question. What was your biggest flaw in the show?
I'll start with this. A little predictable. Just an observation. I think we got a lot of stuff predicted early. Otherwise, my main problem, and actually the reason why it's down to 4.7 is 7.4
So,
or whatever.
I was like, whoa.
Wow, what a drop!
Yeah, why I have it around a 7.4, around. I'm sure it might change, go up or down, after a couple of rewatches or something. Just the pacing. I just will never accept these 35-minute this nonsense. This is absolute I don't care. It's absolute nonsense. It absolutely it kills momentum, especially when these shows are not even designed out to be take the best use of their 8 episodes, especially when they're short. House of the Dragon is going to be 8 episodes this season, but the episode I just watched on Sunday was an hour and 20 minutes, which is twice as long as 2 episodes of this, and that episode probably cost around the same amount of money as one episode of this cost. So
It's almost over.
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. And not that I need Star Wars to be in, because Star Wars in Game of Thrones or whatever you want to call it, are not the same thing. But you're not competing with like the other shows like in your weight class. Like your show is fundamentally shorter than every piece of competition that you have.
Yeah, I mean, like even like,
why can't you make it consistent? Like, why are your episodes like most shows throughout history have had consistent episode lengths? To a degree.
I will also I will play on that point. I'm gonna take over his point, which is that arguably the worst thing about this show is that there's not enough of it. Like, there's not enough.
I'm in agreement.
And it's sad
content.
because I don't even think this is creative team. Like the creative team's fault. This is the creative team having to shoehorn their idea, their writing style into like the format that is like being handed down by corporate. Like,
I agree. I totally agree.
So, like for instance, 4 and 5 are very clearly, and even through behind the scenes admission, I think we talked about this before, are one episode. That would have been better as one episode than like having the beginning half, which is just the build up to the second half, like, and then having to wait a week in between that. You know what I mean? Like, and then on a channel that, on a station that, not a station, like on a streaming server that wasn't Disney Plus, they would have just been able to make that an hour-long episode. But Disney has stupid rules about how they're like, and again, this affects a lot of the Disney Star Wars shows
not just
that have
Star
not
Wars.
felt like, again, most of the Disney Star Wars shows, including this to a degree. This one actually does it better than, say, like Ahsoka and especially Obi-Wan and Boba Fett. Like, a lot of them feel like they're just movies, like really long movies that are being cut up into a bunch of parts. Then same thing for a lot of the
Wasn't Acolyte supposed to be a movie?
MCU like shows as well. So this is very much a Disney Plus problem that is like afflicting a lot of their properties.
Well, they did this with Loki as well. It's not.
I think Loki at least is actually planned out better to fit that model than something like this is.
But I think that's
I
also.
agree with you.
I will say that, and that's the difference between these two properties. You have the experience with all the movies.
Yeah.
You had 16 movies to the 9 that we had with Marvel to Star Wars.
Like Andor's like it's a miracle in my mind that they I don't even know how like Tony Gilroy convinced these idiots to make them greenlit like 12 episodes. Like, I don't know what he did, but like it's like just look at everything else we've got. Like, nothing else has got close. The only other shows that like are like even functionally operate like they're like actually full TV shows is somehow Loki manages to do it in both its seasons with only 6 episodes, and that's just because the writing team on Loki is better than most of the other ones. And then WandaVision, I think like WandaVision because it's 9 episodes, and like I think those are the only 2 things like that have actually felt like full-fledged TV shows. Like
Those were also like the beginning.
exactly. That's why I'm like.
Falcon and Winter Soldier was pretty good.
Falcon to a degree, but I think even Falcon and Winter Soldier, you can do the movie like split into parts argument with. So
I think that this show severely suffers from
corporate
a lack of content. There's so much good stuff that's in the show, and I feel like had they been given the freedom to make each episode even 10 minutes longer,
yeah.
they could have included so much stuff. We could have gotten the spread out flashbacks. We could have gotten more about Sol and Osha. We could have gotten more about Chimere. We could have gotten more lightsaber fights.
I'm wondering why we never saw
Yeah.
any. We didn't see significant amounts of Osha like
And Sol.
growing up and training.
That's what I'm saying.
And
Like,
why we hear about what
for season
happened, but
2?
why didn't we see it? Why
that's
couldn't we
what
see
I
it?
said earlier.
Like it would have been fun to see.
And I don't think the money is being stretched in a good enough way. And I think the show looks great, but I'm like, do you look at how much money is being spent? I'm like, this certainly, like, I've seen other shows kind of allocate better.
So Julian and I were on TikTok again. We've had these conversations more with the fan base. On TikTok Live, it was just like when you're bleeding the crystal. What if we would have gotten flashbacks of Osha with Sol, the guy who raised her, in the temple? You know what I mean? Like,
I'm also inclined to agree with Julian, just to break it very quickly before I forget the thought. Like that, I think it probably would have been better. Like, I actually don't mind either flashback episode that much, but like I do acknowledge they halt pacing its tracks, both of them when they show up.
Right.
And it probably would have been better overall for the show if it was just spread out across.
I also
across
think
the 8 episodes.
that my idea of giving multiple different perspectives of the flashback services the characters more. Again, like that's why it's so like that's why I know that everybody hates the sequels, but it really, really, really serves the character arc of Luke Skywalker for the flashback story to be told 3 different times in 3 different ways until we finally get the truth. That serves his character really, really well because that ends up giving us the redemption arc when he
it's
walks
a
out at
slightly
the
better.
end.
I have my issues with like that.
So,
kind of,
but had
that
they
is a
done that,
better thematic strategy, yes.
had they done that with this show, it would have lent more to Sol's character and ultimately the most to Osha's character for us to feel bad for her when she transitions
To be
into
fair,
this
I don't
dark
think we're
person.
supposed to think of like Soul's entire thing as like a misunderstanding. Like a part of Soul is like, because again, Soul, like I think what actually ends up killing Soul, and is he never apologizes for anything.
No, I know, no.
One.
I'm just saying
So,
it would
like,
have
there's-
lent
so,
more
like, there's
to
also,
both
like,
of
this
their
kind of
characters.
like delusions of grandeur that he kind of not maybe that's not the right word for it, but like he always justifies it like in his own mind to a degree, and like yeah, and he meant well that entire time, but he can never acknowledge that like the
I will
in a certain way, and I think that's why actually Osha ends up like really snapping towards the end. And
I will say
snapping him.
there's one thing that I wish we did get in that in Soul and Osha's final moments together, which was that I just wish that she had taken a little bit more time to speak to him, just a little bit, because really it is strictly she gets picked up by Chimere, she's with Chimere for 2 episodes, and then the first time she sees Soul after that is when she kills him.
Yeah,
but
you have to keep in mind, like, May had just had her. Look, okay, I think, but you have to keep in mind, this is like the only person. This is the person she trusted most in the world. Was like this guy, and this guy she just learned for 16 years, who was like when her father figure or whatever, lied to her about what had actually happened, turned her against her sister, in a way that didn't actually fully happen in the way that he described, and also didn't tell her that he killed her mother. And then she learned all of that at once.
That's a good point.
Like,
That's a good point. I'd probably kill him too.
and she was already struggling. She had the vision. She was like, when she had the helmet on, she was already clearly like shaken by that. She had been exposed to Chimera for a period of time. So I think she was just like,
a few days
like,
with Chimera.
They
could-
like each other.
not to mention, I
Here's
think a
my
lot of it
little-
was no, but that's part of that is like though like it's not as much about like the feels, like, which I know a lot of people complained about. It's not about that. It's about like lust. It's about like freedom, which is how like Chimera like portrayed like the Sith as the dark side, as like like he really gave it like as like freedom, which is kind of a newer like meaning that we kind of see. Like Maul kind of alludes to it in that way, like very like subtly, like in
Right.
Clone Wars and stuff. But like this is the first guy that's like truly means it as like as like the Jedi dogma versus like the freedom of the Sith, and like the
Here's-
love of like that Sith potentially, and like maybe I don't even know if it's love necessarily, but like lust or attraction, whatever they have to each other.
Here's my
It's very
little-
much Sith. What'd you
Here's
say?
my little 2 cents on this little conversation that just happened.
Sure.
I understand that Osha and May are the main characters of the show, but Soul is also a main character of the show.
Mhm.
The death of Soul that we see wasn't supposed to be a moment for Osha. It was supposed to be a moment for Soul. That's how I watched the episode.
I think it's a moment
Hot
for both
take.
of them.
Soul is a trash character.
Oh God, here we go.
This is
Julian
to
just
make
says
people
stuff
mad,
to
so
do.
This is just to say.
This
No.
is Jordan just saying.
No, this
You
is
gave it
not
an
me
8.3.
just
You
saying.
gave
You're
it an
telling-
8.3
wait a
ball. This
second.
don't make sense. Even your
explain.
analysis.
Let me
Go
explain.
ahead. Explain your ridiculous fucking point,
Can I
because I'm
finish
going to
my
argue
point
with you for an
first?
hour.
Yeah, let Jack finish, and then-
first,
yeah.
but we're going to have a conversation after this.
Quickly.
when Soul is like the back half of the season is absolutely meant to be more with Soul than it is with the girls. The front half of the season is supposed to be the girls, and the back half is supposed to be Soul.
I agree.
I
That's why
I kind
the
of disagree with
That's
that.
why the
Really?
second.
Yeah, I don't think
That's
the
why the
girls-
second flashback isn't of May's perspective. It was from Soul's perspective the entire time.
I don't think it's is it Soul's perspective? I don't really
Yes,
think
it absolutely
That's one of
is
the reasons
Soul's.
what I think is wrong with the second flashback episode is that I don't really think it has a perspective.
It
absolutely
definitely
does.
very much
Like
is
it's the
Soul's
Jedi's
perspective.
perspective.
Well, the
but it's
Jedi's
like a
perspective,
few,
but I
like-
think it's
It
meant.
sticks
I mean,
on
it's
Soul.
very
But they don't all
obviously
agree.
Soul.
Like all the 4 Jedi do not have the same perspective, like of the situation that happened. like they
Right,
they
but-
weren't in agreement whenever they went down.
That's one of the places
Like,
where I think it dropped the ball, because I feel like we could have got a lot more with Tobin and Kanaka,
Oh, Torben. Yeah.
Torben and Kalanaka. Like
and they were great in the
they're
second one.
they're
so-
there and they're dead. Like
Yeah.
we get a great fight. That's cool. But like, I really feel like we should have seen how Torben something a little bit more about why he ended up like we understand now, but like we could have seen more of that. We could have seen more of like you could have done a lot with because we have questions about was he exiled or was he like there or did he was it self-imposed exile?
He
but then
did-
they went and they got him. Like they talk about
There's
it,
subtle
but
things
it's
that you can
subtle
figure it
things,
out.
but it could have just been part of the story. It could have been an extra 10 minutes. I'm not saying it needs an episode, but there could have been 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there that would have made I think
Like
the
I think we're
storytelling a
supposed to
little
meant
bit
to
more
believe that Kalnaka has exiled himself. I think we're supposed to believe that what's his name because of is kind of traumatized, like with Torben. Torben is traumatized by what happened, and that's why he like literally ends up like well, obviously someone gets into his head, and then he gets like literally physically messed up by Kalnaka, obviously. So then like he's in a literal bubble that nobody can touch him for like what 10 years. So like
Yeah,
he's
they said
literally
10
like
years.
physically like put his entire energy into never being like vulnerable again.
I want to play on the point that I don't think the second half of the show shifts to Soul being the main character. I think
it focuses on him.
I think
a
it.
lot
I think
more.
it. I think. Yeah, but I think it as the show develops. I mean, it focuses on him a lot more. But the show stays pretty true to it's about May and Osha. I don't think that the show shifts perspectives per se. That it's like it becomes about him. Obviously, it's going to focus more on him because the truth is coming out and more of his character's developing. But I think the perspective is pretty straightforward. That it's May and Osha's story the whole time. It's just that final, like last couple scenes focuses heavily on him because it really is about what he did to them.
Okay,
I don't necessarily think that changes the perspective of the show.
I don't think
my
that the
opinion into
entire
the ring
show
here.
shifts perspective to Soul. I think that at least the second flashback episode is 100% about Soul.
Yeah,
and then
totally.
The last two episodes are Soul trying to. I don't know if it's for himself or if it's for Osha, but he's trying to like say, "I did what I did for you."
I don't.
Yeah,
I kind of completely disagree with this. If I'm gonna lie, because like the two girls are the show is trying to make the two girls the main characters the entire time,
But it has so many
just 'cause of
compelling
how
other
they-
characters.
Because there's a lot of characters at the beginning, especially, and just because of how they writ it. Well, even though like I think May always has something to do in the story. Actually, like May is almost always good and is up to something and is like has a bit more meat on the bones. Osha is a passenger for much of the story and doesn't have a lot to do.
I can agree with you.
So I would say I would not say that the first 4 episodes particularly focus. Like obviously the flashback episode is kind of from the girl's perspective and a lot from Osha's perspective. But like in terms of what we get from like Osha in like up until that point, we don't like get, and it's not, and I think the actress does a very good job with Osha. Like I think a lot of the actress who's like, has got a bunch of criticism from people is not well placed. I just think the character was written, especially Osha, didn't have anything to really do until like episode 6.
I agree with that.
Like so, and I think like that's when they actually start to get really much deeper into the actual perspectives of Osha and both May actually happen in the later episodes. Obviously, they also learn a lot more about Soul, but I actually think Soul is kind of the character we understand more in the first 4 episodes.
I think he's the character we understand and learn the most about of
So-
everybody.
And they
Anyway,
introduce a lot of, and Keimer gets a lot to do in the
character
last
energy.
4 episodes as well.
I think I misspoke when I said that he was a trash character.
that was a very fucking
I don't
poignant
understand how
statement.
you misspeak on that word.
I don't necessarily mean that he's a trash character, but rather a trash human.
Yes, okay, this is more palatable, yes.
Because the character's great character.
Well, he was fundamentally selfish.
but he was creepy as fuck.
What?
What?
Okay, so
He did randomly kind of want to steal children because he wanted
That's
to
the
students.
Jedi.
That's what they do.
no,
It's just like,
no. Listen,
Yes.
that's not a good thing.
Absolutely.
No, I'm fine with that. Like he very clearly like was selfish and was like for whatever reason thought that like there was something on this planet that he had like purpose there, and then he like made the purpose about him. You know what I mean? Like there was obviously like because again like that goes into what I was talking about earlier. Something a little bit overly aggressive about how much he wanted to take away the children from the like what was essentially like all they knew as family.
I'll say this because we talk a lot during the reacts, but when in the second flashback episode, when Indara says that they're doing the cover up and like they're making the lie, Soul is against it at first.
Yeah.
He does not want to lie to Osha at first. He doesn't want to say that May's the reason why her family's dead. But then, like, I can't remember exactly if Indara, like...
She basically told him, this is what we're going to say, because I'm the one who was in contact with the council, so this is what I'm saying, so you can either get on board or get out of the way.
Pretty much.
So what I meant, it was more aggressive. It was like he couldn't separate.
Well, they thought that they were gonna like the only win they had realized they had fucked up the situation, and they thought that the win was that at least the girl they had one girl, and one girl was safe. Again, like what their version of like safe was potentially like incorrect. Like maybe she wasn't that much at risk. We don't really know. I think it's supposed to have been left in a little bit of a gray area. So I think that was the idea, was that like, well, if we tell her what's happening, we're going to like have to send this girl back, and then she's not going to get what she wants either. So Indara almost like did the lie for like Osha, but then like but the idea was like, even as like well thought out and like as well meaning as that lie was supposed to be, but from both like Indara and from Soul's perspective, that lie ended up like making it so that like Osha can never be a Jedi, because she can never get past like the certain things that she never knew about. So there's tragedies that like inevitably, even if they're the best meaning things, had tragedy. That's like a very classic Star Wars.
Well, and I think
thing.
that is, I mean, that is smart writing and good character development for the Indara character. I mean,
Yeah,
it just means that she is just as flawed as everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Plagueis versus Yoda cameo.
Plagueis.
Yeah, I knew Yoda was going to be in it from the first trailer, so the Plagueis cameo was way better for me.
What about you?
Plagueis, perfect in my opinion.
It was a great way to introduce him. I mean, it was like,
Why was he in a cave?
no, it was just so subtle.
It's like,
You know, it's like you're subtly introducing a character that we've never seen live ever. You know what I mean? It's like,
never, yeah.
especially such a beloved character. I mean, people love Plagueis.
I think the design is pretty good from what we can see.
amazing.
He looks great. He looks like he does in the comics.
Yeah.
I think the way, like, so what I liked about the Plagueis cameo versus
If it was
the Yoda cameo, sorry, I didn't mean to hit the mic there, is that there's so much more interpretation of direction of where you can go with Plagueis versus Yoda. Like, is
Oh, yeah.
Well, what's her name? Well,
gonna
Vanessa
tell
and
him
Yoda
the
are just
truth?
about to share. They're about to share some lies. Like they're about to share some cover-ups. Like that.
I don't think Yoda knows anything.
No,
Like,
Yoda's a no. This is like we were talking about this in the group
Yoda
chat.
is
Yoda loves a cover-up. Okay?
I will say Yoda is the
fucking loves
smartest
a
Jedi in
cover-up.
the universe at this point.
Like
There's
Yoda
no
is like
way
the
he
most,
doesn't know.
like even in like the new canon, like you new and old legends, Yoda is like one of the people most at fault for the fall of the Jedi. It's the dichotomy of the character that we love Yoda, but he ultimately is like one of the main reasons the Jedi failed.
So I haven't read any of the High
Can't
Republic
disagree with you on that one.
source material. Is Yoda at this time the master of the
like,
Order?
Yeah, Yoda's Jedi like Grandmaster lasts like 400 years.
I
in the
don't
Order.
think he's Grandmaster currently in the show.
No, he is. Yes, he is. He's very.
I don't think so.
Yes, Yoda's Grandmaster for hundreds of years before.
I don't know
Yes,
about that.
like-
So
Well,
well,
also,
they
like, it
looked that
doesn't-
up.
Yoda's
think that-
Grandmaster during some of the earlier High Republic comics, for God's sake, that are like hundreds of years before this.
So like I said, I don't know enough about the High Republic because I wanted to go into
there's a
the
whole cover-up
show.
Yoda has earlier, like 300 years before this.
I wanted to go into the show as ignorant to the High Republic as possible
No, same.
because
I
I
don't know that
wanted
much.
this to be my reason to go
Like go back and
go
Yeah, that's a
into
good
the High
reason.
Republic to see if it was worth it or not.
Yeah, my only introduction to High Republic was a few lore things that I picked up, and then like the little bits of High Republic stuff we got in Fall and Jedi.
So do you
Survivor.
think Vernestra is telling Yoda, this is what I did, and being as honest, or do you think she's gonna be like, hey, Kymer's alive?
I don't know if she's gonna be like fully honest about like. Actually, I don't know. I think she's probably gonna be honest. If I'm being honest, like, I think she, or at least she's going to fill in the. Maybe she won't say her lie about Soul. Like maybe she won't do that, but maybe she's going to tell like Soul and Dara's lie to Yoda. Like he's gonna fill him in on that,
Yeah, I feel like I feel like that she will.
and Yoda will relate.
Yeah, that's exactly what I
Hey,
think.
I did this 300 years ago.
Yoda do cover up as well.
Just imagine him going, covered up it was.
I mean, they covered up the Order 66 chip thing in Clone Wars too, like way closer to the fall of the
Oh, yeah,
Republic.
that's right,
So
they
they
did.
do a lot of cover ups.
So
This is on StarWars.com. It says the later days of the Old Republic. I don't know when this was written, so I don't know if the High Republic was a thing yet.
I mean, Yoda is like in almost all continuities was Jedi Master for.
Yeah, I mean, it makes
Yoda
sense.
doesn't need to wait till like if Yoda gets to 400, that makes him like older than 99% of the other beings. So a 400-year-old Yoda is older than most Jedi. And
Yeah,
like,
I would.
is in the place to be Grandmaster for yet another 400 years.
Yeah, I would
after
probably
that.
say at this point he most likely
I think in
is.
most continuities that's how it works.
And I think that it's interesting. I think that him being Grandmaster at this point makes it even more interesting because, I mean, that dude is literally running everything, and you're
It's
like
he just became. That's why they fell. He became like Joe Biden, bro. He didn't. He was like that's why it failed. Like
He was
Yoda's the equivalent of like. That's
was
why he couldn't
standing
sense
there.
Palpatine. He was sleepy Yoda.
He was
You
standing
know?
there with
He was
Vanessa while
Sleepy Yoda.
she tormented
Yandin,
Kymir.
you know.
He's like, do it again.
Oh my god. Well, yeah, I wonder if that that I think okay. Your next question was going to be predictions for season 2, right?
Yes.
Okay. I cannot wait to find out what happens
If we get
between
mind you.
I'm almost positive we're
hoping.
going to get a season
think they
2
will.
at this point because the show is becoming much more loved now that it's over.
I mean, it got more views than Andor did.
I was going to say that. I think that I am most excited to or looking forward to season 2. Obviously the Plagueis thing, but that's going to be overarching of the story. But one single thing that I had to pick out is I'm so excited to find out what happened between Vanestra and Kymir.
Yeah, I would probably say that as well.
Yeah.
And I just want to see like what Plagueis' actual personality is like and stuff like that. So,
I
but
wonder if they make him silent. He just like doesn't speak.
he just glares
Yeah, he's just like
like a crypt.
He just hides
He's
behind
staring
trees.
at me.
He's always hiding behind a tree.
he's consistently hiding around the corner in that cave.
It's like that meme where the guy kind of is like the yellow suited.
Oh yeah, that
yeah,
that
and
guy.
he just slowly vanishes.
One thing that I never thought I'd see in a Star Wars show is someone headbutting a lightsaber.
That was
Yeah, that was cool.
sick.
Yeah, Cortosis ended up being a very,
So
very good
Cortosis was
one.
my favorite addition to the live action Star Wars universe because it shows that they're that the show creators and the showrunners are really doing their research into delving into other things to pull in to make sure that we're getting a proficient story.
Yeah, and I love the Sith. The Sith is always like finding like loopholes and like little cheats. Like to, you know what I mean? Like that's what they do. So like the Cortosis is like a really good thing. Even like the way that he was like kind of like fixing it up, which made it look like it was super delicate and like it was very, very crude, which is like goes into the fact that it's very hard to work with, which is why like everyone and their mom doesn't have it. Like, and it's also just supposed to, so I think they
Also
even
a
did
very
it.
rare
They did a
element.
good job of like why of like portraying. I think like why it was so rare and like why we haven't seen it that much before. Like as well. Like
So, and this is my prediction for season 2 to kind of segue that is that Plagueis actually has nothing to do with Kymir. That Plagueis is on planet with Tenebrous because in the Plagueis books, Tenebrous and Plagueis find a Cortosis mine, and that's actually where he takes out Tenebrous and starts his journey.
I would
for
just
a new-
assume that Tenebrous is already dead at this point.
yeah, I'm inclined to agree with that, but I don't think we've seen anything that necessarily like proves that Kymir like has to be like his apprentice at this point. I think it's just the most likely thing based on like the tea leaves.
I get it.
But like, I wouldn't like maybe not in the exact like context you said, but like I don't think it's impossible that like
Nothing's-
Kymir is not like the direct like Kymir could just be a fallen like Jedi theoretically.
Do you
Like
think that the unknown planet was Baldemic?
That's what I think it is. Yeah.
Baldeminic? Sorry.
what is remind me?
It's another Legends thing. But
Plagueis thing?
It's a planet where Plagueis and
Tenebrous.
Tenebrous found a Cortosis mine. And,
Yeah, I
like,
guess.
hid out there for a while.
Is it saying
That's what I think.
it's Evil Oct 2. What do you mean?
Yeah.
The show
That's what it's called.
Yeah, the show very much alludes to the fact that they know each other. Just by the one shot, like him watching Kymir, I think alludes to the fact that he knows him, but I think it would be a good change if he didn't, and that he's just there on the planet, because that now, in the story, introduces a whole new level of something else they have to deal with on top of the
Yeah,
Jedi.
that's the main. I think I put that in the group chat the one day. Like that's the main question. I think the question is less so like is Kymir like his Padawan or not his Padawan, because I think he probably is. I think the question is this like a Ventress or Maul situation?
Yeah,
where,
I agree.
Where Plagueis knows that his Padawan is taking like an Acolyte, or is this a typical like when the younger Sith is trying to like become the Lord, and a lot of the time will take up another like. They're next in line to do that. Like a lot of they'll cheat. They're Sith.
Season 2 of the Acolyte, Osha and Chimere take on Plagueis, and they both lose.
And they both die.
So you said, I think he has to know who Plagueis is, because how would he know what Cortosis is?
No, I'm saying he very likely knows Plagueis. I think I'm saying is he trying to get an Acolyte with Plagueis' blessing,
sorry,
or is he doing it for his own power?
I also
That's what I'm
misunderstood
saying.
your question. Okay, I mean,
because it could be either. It could be like, because again, Palpatine
'cause he
was
wouldn't
Palpatine
necessarily-
was aware of Ventress, and Plagueis was aware of Maul.
I think it would
So-
be. I
and
think it would
Savage
be.
as well, yeah.
I think it would be a more interesting plot line if he is doing it
covertly.
like
I mean,
covertly.
And he's not good at
however,
it,
Clearly
obviously.
he's not like the final apprentice of
Obviously,
Plagueis,
but-
so I
but-
think he's more inclined he's doing this on his own.
I think it would be. I think it is more inclined he's doing it on his own.
And
But
Plagueis
then there's a
just found
couple
his crib.
things. There's a couple things then, which is that if they do know each other, they were on that planet together for a hot minute. Especially like that whole scene where she's in the bed and she puts the helmet on and all
He's
that
hiding
sort of
in the
stuff.
closet.
And yeah, exactly. Like where if
He's in the
if he
wardrobe.
was aware, where was he?
Like a little
But these are all
cryptid.
questions to be asked and answered in season 2.
It is also
Which-
a giant island.
Well, that's true.
He was in the same cave. That was the cave they were in.
Yeah, he
I
was in
think.
the exact same cave.
I mean, do we know
was-
that?
there's
We
only
could have just
one
been in a
cave on
different
the
cave.
It's the same cave because of the outing or whatever.
Oh,
They're
whatever, it don't
alluding to
matter.
the fact that he knows them. But
I like
anyway,
the idea that he's like. I kept seeing tweets that were like they're roommates. Like, I wonder where Plagueis stays in the cave.
It's like a
Like-
it's a Scott Pilgrim thing where they sleep in the same bed.
Yeah. Anyway,
every
we got anything else?
All the pop
every
culture
time,
references.
We got
every
anything
time
else
Knives
for
Chow
F1?
comes to the front door, Plagueis jumps out the window.
So to summarize, go watch Acolyte on Disney Plus. We are not a market
Yeah, we want a
substitute. If you
season
go
2.
watch
Go
our
watch it,
reacts. Also, utilize the hashtags that are out there to ensure that we get a season 2, and stitch
Oh,
our
yeah,
videos
your
and send them
hashtags are
out to Star
definitely
Wars so they know that we're amazing.